Well, welcome, Dr. Alan Stern. Thanks for being here with me. I know you don't love to be called doctor. I know first time I said, "Hey, Dr. Stern," you were like, "Just call me Alan, please."
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I appreciate that. Welcome to our podcast. This is actually our first episode of season 2 of the Elevate Compliance podcast. So very excited to have you on. I appreciate your time.
Wow, thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to be kicking off a second season with you, and I am just honored, delighted, flattered, and excited to be with you today because we're going to make dentistry a much better profession,
Absolutely.
and we're going to do everything we can to make life better for our colleagues.
Not an industry, though. We'll get to that in a minute.
Don't get me started.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
So originally, I had planned to have Alan on last season of the podcast, and he is in the Eastern time zone. I am based in the Pacific time zone, and so I said, "Yeah, we'll meet at 10 o'clock. Sounds good." And he signs on at 7 a.m. my time and says, "Will, what are we doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, that was Pacific." So we made it work this time. I appreciate that. But yes, so Alan, tell us a little bit about, so again, as I mentioned before we started in the pre-show, I don't think there's anybody who's listening or watching this podcast who knows me that doesn't know you, but let's talk about Better, Richer, Stronger anyway, and a little bit about your book.
Well, thanks, Will. I practiced dentistry for 42 years, graduated in 1981, and after working in general practice residency, associateship, opened my own practice and made every mistake in the book. And I stuck with those mistakes. I loved those. I was in love with my mistakes, and it put me into some very serious financial difficulty. And along with the financial difficulty came a little bit of lack of self-esteem, which I wasn't really a world champion at before I went into dentistry. Sent me into a downward spiral. And with a lot of help, I lifted myself up by the bootstraps and redefined myself, re-engineered myself, and I emerged better, richer, and stronger. Not the best, not the richest, not the strongest, but man, I don't know, I did it. And now I sold my practice. I've rewired and refired. I will never retire. And I am here, just like you, to make life better for dentists because we have a good profession. We have a great way to change the world. And sometimes we lose track of that, as I did. We do great work. And people like you help us make it better.
Well, I appreciate that. When did you sell your practice, by the way? When did you not retire but rewire? When was that?
I remember, gee whiz, October 12th, 2023.
Okay. Oh, okay. Real recently. Okay.
Yeah. And that was quite a journey also. That was a difficult, bumpy road. But you know what? One of the things that dentists have a hard time understanding, life is challenging. Alanism number one, show me a person without stress and I'll show you a cadaver.
Yeah.
Show me a person whose life is a perfect storybook, except for you, Will. I know your life is perfect. But I'll show
Far
you
from it.
I'll show you a liar.
Yeah.
We all have our challenges. And so if we allow our challenges to grow us and refine us rather than define us, life gets better because of the mistakes that we make.
Love it. Yeah. And I resonate a lot with that. So I just started Elevate Compliance last April. Mm-hmm. And that's when you and I first originally started connecting. Excuse me. And it was a hard decision, like you said, kind of a rewire. And I had been with the same company for almost 10 years doing dental compliance. And so leaving that and going out on my own and innovating was really a challenge. But, like you said, life ain't perfect, far from it, but it's a lot better now than it was before. And I'm just so excited for the trajectory of where we're going. And it's gotten me connected to people I never would have met otherwise. I mean, I probably never would have met you had I not done it. Or anybody else from the Dental Nacho verse or from the Nifty Thrifty universe or those people. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
So Better, Richer, Stronger. What's the goal behind, I mean, obviously I love that you said not the best, not the richest, not the strongest, better, richer, stronger. So who are you aiming to really help and what's your ultimate goal behind the program?
My goal is to help dentists find certainty that they're on the right path. My goal is to give them more focus on the work that they're doing, to help them grow, to help them communicate better with themselves and with everybody else around them.
Awesome.
And we're all leaders. Well, some of us are not meant to own a practice. We're not cut out to do that. You and I had the drive. You and I really wanted to do that, but I'm meeting a generation of dentists. A lot of them don't want to own.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many advantages there are in owning, just don't want it. But they too are leaders.
Mm-hmm.
When they set foot in that operatory, they are leaders. When they set foot in the office, they are leaders of their own domains. And leadership requires a vision, a little bit of intellect, some communication skills, and a heart. Love has to be put back in the workplace. And a lot of people, a lot of dentists, they are very, very engrossed in the details of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to put heart back into it. We got to put heart and love back into healthcare, or we will devolve into that one of those two dirty words we talked about.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, so I imagine that without the heart, without that passion and bringing that love to the industry,
Watch
that's
it.
what you end up with, right? That's where I was going with it. So let's talk about that. So a little bit of background for anybody watching and listening. When I first connected with Alan about coming onto the podcast last fall, I said, yeah, so, I want you to come prepared to answer a few questions like, what's your favorite thing about the dental industry? What's your least favorite thing about the dental industry? And what do you love most about being a dentist, or whatever the questions were? And immediately, like the little bubbles pop up that somebody's responding, that almost didn't even happen. It was immediately, don't use the word industry or you'll have to deal with a madman. And I was like, that sounds great. Let's talk about it. So what is it? Is it literally just because industry takes the heart and passion out of it? Or is there more to that word that I don't know?
Yeah. You really brought out the Jersey in me, even though I don't live in New Jersey anymore. You brought out the Jersey guy in me. You'll take the guy out of Jersey, but you'll never take Jersey out of the guy.
Right, right.
I'm a different generation, Will. And being a boomer, being a proud boomer, wise for the experience of my old age, and I'm very proud of my age. But I grew up at a time where we looked up to the dentist. And there were some downsides to it, but the dentist carried a degree of care, a degree of real passion for his people. Passionate is a word that's grossly overused now. But the dentist was in my day, they were mostly men, so forgive me, but they were the father figures of a certain element of health to us. And when Dr. Bob, my dentist, said something, I took it seriously. Dr. Bob is the guy who convinced me to become a dentist.
Oh.
But he was an amazing guy. But if I'm not taking care of my teeth, Dr. Bob, let me have it. And my parents paid the bill, of course. But nowadays, and Dr. Bob was a figure in the community.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I aspired to be. And that's what I became. But the trend today is to devolve from being a profession into a highly commercialized industry. And we get into a lot of trouble there. Because all of a sudden, we're hearing talk about corporations, and things that are happening in medicine are very frightening to me as somebody who's going to need more and more healthcare as I get older. I don't want that to happen to dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
Dentistry is about relationships. Dentistry is about me asking you, Mr. Gilmore, the patient, how can I help you? What do you want?
Please call me Will.
What are your needs? What's that?
I said, please call me Will. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what are your needs?
Mm-hmm.
What is your version of health? And then I follow a basic Allen principle, SUAL, shut up and listen. Because you may want the Hollywood smile for the glamorous, glorious business you're in. Or you may be raising children, saving for college, maybe caring for parents, and you can't afford the perfect all-on-X or the perfect set of veneers straight across. I have to know that. in
Hmm.
order to doctor you properly, not to sell you a magnificent set of veneers that I trained so hard to do. It's not about me, it's about you. That's the difference between profession and sell 'em up industry.
Got it.
We have to make a living. We obviously have to earn more than we spend.
Hmm.
So we have to control our expenditures, but we do have to earn a living. But in my world, Will, earning a living comes from giving something of value to somebody. That's the difference.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah. And, as you're talking through this, I'm just thinking about my 10 years in the profession and thinking back to so actually people who've listened to my podcast already know this, but I'll share with you kind of how I got into the dental field, because my passion was always actually to work in film and television production. And I worked for for a few years. And I'm not sure, I'll have to probably blurt that out. I'm not sure I'm allowed to actually talk about, say on the podcast. I've just done it
Can you say
twice, but whatever.
CBS or
No,
ABC?
there you go. Yes.
HBO,
I
Peacock.
worked for one of the big, yes, I worked for, and, but yeah, I worked there, and I got loaned out to a small production company that was going to film a video on, and I quote, how to properly disinfect a dental operatory. And at the time, I'm going, well, I don't know what any of that means, but okay, and what the heck? Let's go shoot it. Let's make this thing.
Yeah.
And I met the owner of the former company that I was with for the last 10 years on that shoot, because it was for their company. And we were in a dental practice, and I met the dentist and I met the hygienist who was there, and a couple of the people who were the actors. They were actually hygienists and assistants who were doing the procedures. And I was like, man, these people are so cool. This is such a neat field. And the dentist happened to be, again, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say about this, but he was a dentist for a major sports team in the greater Seattle area. I'll just say that. So he had sports memorabilia all over the place, because of course he knows everybody on the team. And so it was really cool. It just was like my first glimpse into the field. And so 10 years later, here I am. And I'm just thinking about, as you were talking through, taking putting the passion back into it and turning it back to a profession rather than, a sell 'em up industry. Just even in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've seen that shift you were talking about, where some of the new generation of dentists are really just more, how do I just make the money, all the money, and it's interesting. And I'm in that generation, so I certainly don't mean to disrespect any of the dentists that are in my generation coming into the field now, but it's a fascinating take. It's a different take than I've heard before, so I appreciate that. And nobody has ever challenged the word dental industry before you, so I appreciate that, because every single day I try to learn something new and learn a different perspective, and that's one that I hadn't even considered before in that way. So I appreciate that, Alan.
Thanks, Will. And
Yeah.
to be fair to our young dentists out there, I understand, because the young guys are coming out with significantly more debt than I came out with. If I tell you how much my student loans were, I think half your audience would throw something at whatever they're listening to. Uh, uh, my student loan debt no, I won't do that. No, they'll get very upset. But it was not
You can tell me
foreboding. I
afterward
thought
when
it
we're
was.
not.
What's
Yeah.
that?
You can tell me afterward when we're not live. Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't, I thought it was foreboding,
Hmm.
but it was just another expense. It was just another item um, to spend every month until the payoff was done in 10 years. But now it's different, and these young people, these well-educated, well-trained, well-intended people are looking at a couple of six figures of debt, and that's a big monthly chunk. So we have to be a little bit gentle and extend a little bit of grace to them.
Sure.
And some of them are working in corporate entities where there's a lot of pressure to produce, so to speak.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of work to do
Hmm.
to really take this profession back.
Hmm.
And I'm feeling it more and more inside of me as I watch what's happening. And I'm getting more and more upset. And I am, as our friend Paul Goodman says, I'm crying inside for that.
Hmm.
And I'll
Yeah.
do my best to stop it. I will do my best to make life better for every single practitioner out there.
Ever wondered how to make compliance management so much easier in your practice, where you don't have to manage it every single day? Using Elevate Compliance's online platform, you have access to forms, online continuing education courses, and answers to compliance questions whenever you need them. Not to mention, we will write your appeals if you are ever cited by OSHA or HIPAA or a state-specific OSHA plan. For information, visit elevatecompliance.net or reach out to me directly at will@elevatecompliance.net. So I want to latch on to that for just a moment and talk a little bit about what you just said, because I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm picking up a little bit that maybe DSOs are not your favorite organizations in the field. And I don't mean that like you don't believe they should exist or anything like that to that extreme.
They have to.
But yeah, they do. What's your kind of overall opinion of DSOs, especially, the really monster ones and kind of the way that they approach the field?
Oh my. You know, there. I just got off a call with Amanda Hill. I don't know if you know Amanda.
I
She
don't know,
she
man.
would be she is also into infection control. She's into a lot of other
Okay.
things. Um, but we talked about this, and this is good. Sit down, brace yourself, fasten your seatbelt. Ruth Chris and White Castle
Uh-huh.
both serve USDA approved beef.
Okay.
And look, dentistry is expensive. No matter how you look at it, what we do is expensive for
Hmm.
so many reasons. In fact, toward the end of my career, a person would come in and ask me, why is this so much? And my answer is dentistry is expensive because dentistry is expensive. It cost me a lot of money to deliver what people think is some simple, stupid thing.
Right.
It just is that way. But dentistry, three very sensitive body parts, Will, and I'll get to this point in a minute.
Hmm.
Dentistry, you know the three sensitive body parts we treat? This is an Alanism. This is Alanism number 4.
Okay.
We treat the mouth,
Okay.
duh.
Makes
We
sense.
treat the psyche,
Also
because
makes
Will, if
sense.
you were missing your upper central incisor, you wouldn't feel very good about yourself.
Absolutely.
Or if you had a toothache all night last night, you wouldn't be emotionally in a very good way. But the third very sensitive body part that we treat is the wallet. It costs a lot of money.
Hmm.
And my generation of dentists was not trained to understand that the human being at the other end of those instruments has a family to support, has fears, because we're very afraid about money.
Hmm.
Now, especially,
Hmm.
the economy is so volatile and we're going through some real tectonic changes
Yeah.
in the world economy. So people are scared. We have to deal with that. So the DSO may be a model of business that allows a less financially impactful service to be performed.
Okay.
They're, they're not going away.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely
The
not.
mom and pop hardware store is there, but so is Home Depot and Lowe's.
Yep.
There is a market for all of it. So what I think we need to do as dentists, first of all, we have to have our own practice philosophy. All right, I'm going to go to work for XYZ DSO, and I'm going to be the biggest, baddest producer in there, and I'm going to treat people well. This is why I went into dentistry, and the DSO serves that need. Or I want to own my own practice, and I know it's going to be a tough road. But the tough road of the DSO, to me, is less advantageous than the tough road of being my own person.
Got it.
So I think each dentist and each patient needs to understand what role they play. Where we get in trouble is where a person walks into a low-priced White Castle, exaggeration, place for dentistry and expects Ruth Chris. And if a person walks in to a Ruth Chris dental office and gets a White Castle product, that's where we get in trouble.
Yeah.
What I worked for corporate. I worked for a small owned corporate
Okay.
the first 5 years of my career. Did I like it? No. Did I give it my best effort at all times? Absolutely. Did I stay within my ethical wheelhouse? Yeah. Was I anxious to get out? Was I happy on my last day? I liked the people I was working with, but I
Sure.
was very happy. In my mind, I was liberated. So it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
It will serve, but we have to stay. To the DSO owners out there, if any of you are listening, God love you. You're employing people on a large scale,
Hmm.
but sometimes, and I have a program that I'm doing later this year with my friend John Blumberg, who is the expert on integrity. We run a dental circle of integrity, and you and I will talk about that
Yeah, we'll
privately.
talk. I mean, if you have a second, if you don't mind deviating from your point for a minute, I'd love to hear about it here.
Well, John was a upper level executive with KPMG. Was it
Okay.
who was the accountant for Enron? It was no, it wasn't KPMG. It was Arthur Anderson
Okay.
before they imploded. But John learned about integrity. Integrity doesn't mean honesty.
Hmm.
Honesty is a part of integrity. Integrity means living your core values, whatever they are. So any human being will drift a little bit off of their core values. In dentistry, it happens to all of us. I don't care if you're the highest level AACD or a FQHC doc. You'll say, well, if I can get away with this, maybe I can do it. And you drift off of your ideal center. And if you're not careful to correct yourself and recenter yourself on your values, all of a sudden, a little bit off becomes your moral center. And then you
Yeah.
go a little further and a little further. I see it in the world of politics.
Yeah.
I see it where candidates come in and they have this ideal version of the world, and all of a sudden, what happened? They drift off their moral center.
Hmm.
So, what
And
I
like
would
you said, it
say,
gets a little bit easier. Sorry to cut you off. It gets a little easier every time, right? Like you said,
yeah,
if you don't
yeah,
recorrect,
recenter,
give a little more, give, little more, give, little more, give.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I would say to the DSO owners out there and managers, keep employing, keep improving, get your people to improve, stay on your moral center. And if you see yourself drifting, and if others see you drifting, then get some help at recentering. Um, if you're off center now, sit down, take a deep breath, and look in the mirror. What are you doing? And I'm not saying that harshly or angrily. I'm
Of
saying it
course.
with curiosity.
Yeah.
Where am I? Who am I? What the hell am I doing with this big juggernaut? What is it doing for the world?
Hmm.
Because in a profession or in anything, we earn money. By the way, make money is a new one in Allen's Dirty 30.
Okay.
We don't make money, we earn money.
Got it.
Because money is what we receive in exchange for something of value to somebody else. So I would tell any owner or any dentist or any person, what are we doing? What are our core values? How did we get into this? What did we want to do? And are we still centered on our core values?
Yeah.
And if
Love
we
it.
can get a world, and this, yeah, this is ideal, this is Pollyanna, this is rose-colored glasses, but damn, we're deteriorating, Will, we're degenerating. Let's look at ideal and let's come as close to our imperfect best as we can
Yeah.
and get on the straight and narrow. I don't want to see my profession go down the tubes.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's, I love everything you're saying. It is resonating with me a lot. And I think, especially with starting Elevate last year, that was part of the looking at myself in the mirror. I've gone through a similar thing with this recently. And in the last basically 2 years, looking at, am I going the way that I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And having my son is now 18 months old, 19 months old. And having my 19-month old is definitely, that was really what kind of woke me up and made me look in the mirror, because before he was born, I recognized that the world's not about to be about me anymore. My world is not about to be about me. It's about to be about him. And So that was definitely a wake up call that made me kind of look in the mirror and go, who? It's no longer who's the man I want to be. Now it's who's the dad I want to be. You know,
Beautiful.
what kind of dad do I want to be? And it kind of led to that. So yeah, this is good stuff. This is good stuff, Alan. I appreciate that. That is it's important. This is an important message, and I appreciate that you are actually taking the time and effort to put this message out there, not just by joining our podcast, but I know, so is Better, Richer, Stronger, when you put your videos and stuff out, is that your podcast, or are they just short clips that you do, or is it kind of a melding of
No, they
both?
are like this.
Okay.
And they're on my Facebook page,
Hmm.
which is called Better, Richer, Stronger. And I know a lot of my videos are bouncing over to Instagram, which is nice.
Hmm.
You know, I'm an old guy. Instagram's hard for me to learn. Maybe some of you people can teach me that.
I'll
But
help you out. Yeah.
yeah, but my message is resonating, and we're getting some points across every day. I
Yeah.
do a video message every day, short, 3-4 minutes of something that's on my mind, and
Are those
you
your
know,
Alanisms? Is that what you call your
oh,
Alanisms?
I've got 95 Alanisms. I'm
Okay.
working on 100.
Awesome.
The list is growing, but they're based on Alanisms, and they're also based on observations that I see in the world of dentistry. Uh, you know, things young dentists tell me or put out online, and I don't want to say I have all the answers because nobody does,
Nobody
but
does.
but you have your own answers. Every individual, dentist or non-dentist, their answers are inside of them, and the trick will be for them to find their own answers, how to deal with these things.
Elevate Compliance is proud to be a member of the Dental Nachos and Nifty Thrifty communities. In fact, we're extending our special year-end offer from the end of 2024 into early 2025 of 15% off your first 3 months on the platform if you join using the promo code SOCIAL15 at checkout. For information, reach out to us at info@elevatecompliance.net, or you can email me directly at will@elevatecompliance.net.
I talked about the 1-star review
Mm-hmm.
this morning. The dreaded 1-star review. Oh my God, what am I going to do? You worry about what you can control and you don't worry about what you can't.
Absolutely.
And you bury the 1-star review. I talked about my friend Len Tao. I'm sure you know Len.
Mm-hmm.
Len tells people very wisely to bury him in positive reviews.
Yep.
I tell people not only do what Len advises, but I advise you to bury it inside of your brain.
Yeah.
Bury it inside of your brain by printing out your top 10 Google reviews. Put that paper on your night table and on your mirror in the bathroom, even if your spouse thinks you're nuts, because all dentists are nuts, we know that. And read them every single day. And that will bury Mr. McNasty's review of you,
Yep.
calling you a scoundrel. It'll bury it with positivity.
Yeah.
So you have your own answers in front of you, and my method is guiding people to their unique solution.
Awesome. And part of how you do that, because we have to have the shameless plug, of course, is that
Oh,
little book that you put over on your desk there. So part of how you do that is through Enjoy the Ride. So tell us
yeah.
a little bit about the book. I mean, again, I don't know that there's too many people who see my podcast who don't already know you and your
Uh,
book, but let's talk about it
you're
anyway.
you're very you're goosebumping me. The book is my story. The book is the story of my upbringing, the son of a Holocaust survivor, and some harsh things that I went through. My mother is my hero, is my hero. She's teaching me more in death than she did in life, and she taught me a lot. And I was also, part of my upbringing was the fact that I wouldn't amount to anything. And that was not my mother. My mother was amazing. But my mother knew that Jewish people were put in the world to suffer because that's what she did. So there is something called epigenetic trauma, where people who have been through things like this, their genes are changed a little bit, and that's transmitted down both epigenetically and environmentally to offspring. So I came out with a pretty lousy self-esteem. And it's the story of my resurgence. And I did learn to enjoy my career. And the reasons are in the book. And I emerged triumphant. And it's an important message. Because at the end of my career, actually midway through my career, when I came out of this nonsense, I realized that a lot of other dentists were carrying burdens very similar to mine. And you have to carry them. They're in your wiring. But you can subrogate them. You can put them where they belong and use them as vehicles for growth. And damn, I did it. I'm no smarter. I'm certainly no more talented. But I learned something. And for the dentists out there who are having real mental health issues, difficulty coping with the stresses that my generation was equipped for, but for some wacky reason, the younger generations are not. There are reasons, but that's another podcast
Yeah.
with somebody who knows more about it than I do.
Same.
Yeah, but I have those coping tools. You can cope with them. That's what the book is for. That is what my coaching is for. That's what my talks to study clubs are for. That's what my individual and group coaching is all about. And we work through these solutions together. I've been there. I've done that. I held that damn handpiece for 42 years. Very few people have done that and emerged with this particular attitude or orientation with the experience that I've had.
Love it. Well, if anybody wants to acquire a copy of Enjoy the Ride, where's the best place for them to get one?
Amazon.
Okay.
Or, if you want, email me, alan@betterrichesstronger.com, and I'll see what I can do.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, as we're getting kind of close to wrapping up, there's a couple other things that I want to talk about. First of all, that's been awesome. You said I gave you goosebumps. You're giving me hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. This is great, Alan. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about something a little bit different. I want to come back to the provider comment that you made earlier, but we'll come back to that in just one second, because if there's one thing that I have really picked up on knowing about you since we first initially got connected, it's that you just absolutely cannot stand those damn Yankees, right? That you just cannot.
Listen, you.
So let's talk a little bit. So I'm in Seattle. If I had to, I didn't really get into the Major League Baseball until I moved here, because I grew up in Northern California, where sort of the closest team that we had was the A's, and it just not really, and that was still hours away. So I never really grew up a baseball fan. I'm a huge football fan. But when I moved to Washington, I kind of fell in love with the Mariners, because the love for the Mariners here is great, despite the fact that they've never done anything of any significance. So where's your passion for the Yankees? I mean, obviously you grew up in New Jersey. You said that's where you're from.
No, I grew up in New York.
New York, excuse me. Okay.
Yeah,
So
in
you
fact,
practiced in New Jersey. I'm sorry.
yes.
Got it. So you've been a lifelong Yankees fan, I assume.
I was a Mets fan originally,
Oh, okay.
because I grew up very near what is now Citi Field.
Okay.
I almost said Shitty Field. Can't say that on a podcast. But it is because I'm very angry at Juan Soto for a number of reasons. But the Yankees...
I could probably name a couple of those reasons, but that's, again, another podcast. So
yeah, you know what? It's very similar to what dentistry is going through right now. Because what Soto did was he defined himself with money and put money above everything else.
What is he doing? He's turning baseball into an industry.
Industry.
There you go.
Yeah, instead of America's pastime. But I love the Yankees because they're classic. They are the classic team. They don't put, one of the things I love about the Yankees, no name on the back of their uniform. My daughter was a two-time All-American softball player who won a national title on the junior college level. None of those teams put their name on their backs, because it's not about the individual, it's about the team. And the Yankees have managed imperfectly to put together a team of very high-level characters, of good boys in baseball. And they play to championship caliber every year. They screw it up every now and then. But
Sure.
sorry, guys, who made it to the World Series from the American League? And who's always been in contention?
Yep.
So that's why I like the Yankees. They're colorful, they're charismatic, but they're classic.
The three C's:
Yeah,
color, character, and charisma. Right there, you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we get ready to wrap this up, one last thing that we got to talk about, just because again, it was one that I could tell always makes you jump a little bit when you hear the word, and that is when you provide dental care. So,
Oh, oh.
what exactly is the hatred towards provider? Because I mean, I've actually never, people have, industry is a word that definitely generates some, it's a buzzword, but I've never heard anybody jump at provider before. So where's the distaste for that come from?
It disturbs me to no end. And all kidding aside, I could joke about you all. I'll have
Sure.
to talk along with you. What's happening in dentistry is that the talent is becoming the lowest rung. So we go to school for 4 years beyond college. We do training that the general public has no idea what it's all about.
Yeah.
We bust our butts. We sacrifice 4 youthful years, 4 years where we could be going to work, bringing home some money, having more time with family, having more time having children earlier, and having more quality time. And we earn credentials that 93% of the population does not have. We also endeavor to educate ourselves further and further. We are constantly doing CE. We are practicing dentistry, just like lawyers practice law. We practice it because we assume that tomorrow will be better than we were yesterday. We are practitioners. We are providers. They talk about your cable company provider, your this provider. No, it devalues us, it dehumanizes us, it commoditizes us, it belittles the education that we have trained to do, for the things we've trained to do. We are professionals. We are practitioners. Providers is for something else. A
For
provider provides a commodity. A
in an industry.
practitioner provides care, skill, judgment, leadership, and influence.
Love it.
Take a deep breath, Alan. Let it go.
That's your mic drop moment. There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, with that said, I mean, that feels like a final mic drop to me. I don't know that there's too much else that can be said, but Alan, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and taking some time with me this afternoon. I was going to say this morning. It is afternoon for you now there on the East Coast, but it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
For me, it's an honor and a privilege that I take very seriously and with a great deal of gratitude. Thanks, Will.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.